Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the morning coffee with American Scouser or tea. I got coffee as always. Back to being the greatest dad. I don't know if I was the greatest dad yesterday too. Might have taken a day off watching the game, but back at it. Uh, what a day it was yesterday. Talked a lot about it with Mecca's gin and everything yesterday in the pre-match and the post-match. Kind of recovering from that, but it was like nicer to get up to this morning. So I'll give you guys that. Lot to talk about that game. There was like a couple of things I wanted to kind of like get your guys' take on it as we talk more. Alan is with us. Alan, good morning. Um, but let's get to the big news first, right? So today, I mean, almost a done deal, not official, at least per the sites from Liverpool. It's not official yet, pending medicals and all that kind of stuff. But every reliable journalist out there is pretty much saying it's a done deal. Good morning, Chris. Chris is with us as well. And Artur from Juventus, formerly of Barcelona, is headed our way on loan. No option to buy, which I thought was weird, but at the same time, his evaluation right now is about like 19 million or something like that on transfer market. So it's not like, um, would be a huge competition. And obviously, if he fits in, it would be easier to, easier to like pry him off, pay it out, and kind of like steal it from them. What do you guys think of this midfield? So Chris says new mid. I think he'll be really good. I think the thing is, why we got and how why we got it is kind of important. And is he the only one coming? To me, like at least on paper, when you look at stats, when you look at his style, it seems more of a handle replacement than anything else, to be honest, because it's not like really like a Thiago replacement or like a Keita replacement. And not that those guys, well, maybe Keita, but need to be replaced, but at least on the field to be able to do the things that those guys do. He's maybe a cross between, to be fair to him, is probably a cross between Thiago and Hendo, but more of the Hendo side, I would say. From the limited times I've seen him, Chris Scott says he's reliable. Yeah, I mean his injury history, he had that surgery I think like 2 seasons ago, whatever. But um, I mean, hopefully, as long as he's available this season, at least it's a loan thing is really all we care. Mateusz, the Polish press, is up with us this morning. Desperation signing. Hard to see this guy as the right player we have been so strict about. I agree to that, and that's the thing that kind of bugs me. I almost get the feeling. Here's the thing, and as I listen to, obviously we go to the post match right after the game. Don't get to listen to a lot of the press conferences and things like that. But the odd thing was, especially about yesterday's game, it almost sounded like Carvalho would not even be coming in. We would be finishing with Hando if Hando doesn't have an injury, which, there goes the credit that I was going to give for those substitutions. And also, Hando's injury, and because it's a hamstring injury, because I mean they can range based on the scan and how it comes back today, how long the injury would be, but it's never too short because it's one of those deals where, I mean, if you're ever pulled a hammy, it's very likely to come right back if you do not let it heal. And usually when it comes back, it's worse than the first one. So it's something that you want to be really careful with. And knowing how we are, it's gonna be one of those deals. Is like he should be back in practice this week. He's running, he's back at practice, he's doing full practice with the boys now, and then he'll play. So we're talking at least, just that period alone is like 2 weeks, probably at the minimum. Alamoan says he's got to get up to Premier League level, then Liverpool level for starters, therefore an injury risk. He's been injured 15 times in 4 years. I've seen that. I mean, when you look at his injury like records, but most of them have been like a game, 2 games. It's been what we like to call at Liverpool a knock. So it's, apart from like that one big one where he had to have the surgery, like for the leg, I believe, it's not as big. So in our Discord channel, VJ just shared this, so I stole it right away and wanted to kind of like bring it here. This is him versus other midfielders within the last year. Kind of like gives an idea of what he does. He is a lot of, obviously, a short pass guy. You can see touches like where he used the ball. You can see the pressures, the tackles. he is going to be more of that's why I feel like this is more of like a handle replacement, which when you watch the game yesterday, I think it was more and more evident that we need Kanate or Matip to get back. And nothing again, not that I got anything against Gomez. I thought he played a really good game yesterday, but we need somebody, or Gomez has to be given the green light because I can't see why Gomez can't do the same thing. He's a dude that's played right back. He can move up with the ball very comfortably. I mean, he's comfortable on the ball for a center back. He's good on the ball for a center back. So it could be more of a direction given to him, not to like push up and leave space behind. I don't know what the situation was, but it just feels like, we need that center back who will take advantage of that space in front. There were a lot of times where both center backs had a lot of room in front of them to move up with the ball and maybe attract people. And they did not. We know Van Dyke never does. I mean, or very, very rarely does. When he does it, you're like, whoa. And usually we're up like 3-0 or something. And that is probably by design. But um, you did not see Gomez doing it. You did not see Fab doing it. So now you have three players that you took out of your attack in almost like your half or in midfield, kind of like passing it sideways. And, you have the other defense shifting, but they're not really coming at the ball. So everybody's watching each other until we get bored. And then we play a long diagonal. I mean, I know we're moving it to create that diagonal, but they knew the diagonal was coming. So usually the left back or the right back headed it out or intercepted it because the diagonals were never dead on. And because they know it's coming, they were playing a bit more deeper. So they're not leaving space for like Mo behind it, for example, or Diaz. It's usually those are targeted towards the right hand side because it's usually coming from Van Dyke. So it's going to like towards Elliott or Mo. And in I would say freaking man, I mean like about 90-95% of the time they intercepted that ball. They either intercepted it or they kind of like had it in the last second. And I kept saying, oh man, one of these is going to come through and go by and Mo is going to be wide open because the guy is jumping for it. If he misses, by the time you realize what the hell happened, Mo is in the box. But that chance just did not come. 20 plus appearances in every season since 2018, says Chris. That's all we need from a loan. And I think that's the key thing here is the fact that it is a loan. So we have kind of put ourselves in a no-win situation with fans when it comes to the transfer market, I think, because unless we signed a huge name today, I think you were never going to have every fan happy or pleased, right? But at least I guess the thing I'm kind of like in the middle with this. I am not like, yay, we got Artur or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I'm not like, ugh, we got this guy. I mean, why this guy or anything either. So it's not like a Ben Davies signing, right? Like, just like a body, just to sit on the bench, never show up anyway, never gonna be ready. I mean, the dude is experienced. This almost seemed like I mean, he'll be able to kind of work into the team fast, being Brazilian and all that. Like there's like that click already. Like he can hang out with the Brazilians, and it could have been one of those deals where I mean, they said, hey, check out this guy. He wants to come over here. I just talked to him last night when Hendo got injured or something. So I think that's the only part is if we felt like we needed a guy in and we got it. But since we lost the guy yesterday, it does not really feel like getting a guy in, does it? It just feels like now we got another Hendo coming, like a Hendo's replacement coming in who doesn't have the experience of Hendo. One of the few things, and like not one of the, I shouldn't say few, but one of the most important things Hendo brings is like kind of like the leadership and pace of play. And I know if we're gonna get that from Arthur right away. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works. Are we done yet? Who knows? It sure sounds like it. There was a lot of rumors about Douglas Lewis yesterday, and obviously there is that mystery bid for Tielemans and for Leicester from Leicester City. Who those people are? Like, are we the bids? Apparently, it got turned down. Arsenal was kind of like going at Douglas Lewis and Louise, and they signed god, not drawing a blank now with the dude's name, but there you go, Dan Dunker from Wolves. And I know Gerard was saying yesterday it's not a player we want to lose, but sometimes you got to do what's best for the club, meaning I don't want to sell him, but the club does, kind of a deal for Douglas. And I think this is kind of like the replacement they got Dan Dunker from Villa, kind of opens up for them to now move Douglas. and I don't know where he will go. Obviously, Arsenal will be after him as well. City signed Akanji from Dortmund because obviously they have some center back issues. They don't have any freaking scoring issues, that's for sure. With Holland's kind of on a roll over there. I mean, we talked about it yesterday morning that Nottingham Forest game was going to be a massacre, and it kind of like turned out to be. It was over very, very early. So it's going to be interesting if we do another move because, like I say, before yesterday, we felt we needed a midfielder. And yesterday we lost another one. So you would think, we need two midfielders. But it goes back to what Matush is saying, I think, is like, who is the right player? Or like, was Archer one of the right players? Probably not. Or it was definitely not high on the list as they're like kind of like going through the sheets. They were like, how about this guy? But because I would think, if we did something like that, we would do something more attractive. First of all, we could probably try to buy him. Second of all, you would think we would try to get like like the buy option in there. But, this is last minute action here. So you don't get a lot of leeway or you don't get a lot of time for discussion. And again, we have put ourselves in the situation. So this goes to probably Klopp, because if Klopp was screaming off the rooftops about a midfielder earlier, I think we would have gone for a midfielder earlier and we would have time to negotiate and kind of like look into different players or whatever. But when Klopp says, no, we don't need a midfielder, look at all these guys, and point to the, and then eventually where he points ends up being like the training room, and they're like, look at all these guys, god damn it, yes, we do need a midfielder. But I mean, that's kind of being naive. If you looked at, let's look at the squad. Who do we have for midfield? We have Henderson, we have Milner, and then you're like counting these names, and then you count names like Thiago, Keita, Ox. Either we were thinking, I think the thinking was, yes, these guys are going to get injured, but I mean, not all at the same time. And then, boom, they go injured again at the same time. So perhaps that's why he was initially saying we don't need a midfielder. I mean, if Ox is out, he'll be there. If he's out, he'll be there. But when they're all out, I think it's kind of like you're setting yourself up for failure because of all these possible injuries you're going to have. And I mean, when you have players that are chronically injured for one reason or another, and you have to kind of manage their minutes, which we have done with Keita before, we've done with Thiago before. When you have players that you have to manage minutes on very, very carefully, obviously, any player you have to manage some minutes to a certain extent, but when you have to really pay attention and like, wrap him in wool or whatever, I mean, it's just, you don't want to count those guys are like, yeah, we got midfielders. So if we had really been more determined to get a midfielder and be in the market for it, I mean, it's kind of, this summer does not look like it's the first summer I get the feeling where FSG and Klopp were not on the same page. Because it can't be the funds when I mean, Klopp even admitted we went after Tremaine and, we didn't get it. And that was a lot of money. So the money was there. It was almost like, him or bust. Like, we'll wait then, kind of a deal. And we waited way too freaking long. And we didn't go up after these, right players that, like Mateusz was talking about. And, this team keeps talking about in terms of getting the right player. And I do understand that. And I do respect that. You don't want to get just anybody in there. And we're not a team. I mean, we talked about this before on the podcast, like City does well with eventually moving players and stuff, but they have the luxury to be able to keep rolling the dice. And, that's, I think, when Klopp says we should have, maybe taken more risks in the transfer market. That means there were some players that might possibly not be the right player, but more than likely the right player. Like, we were not as sure on it, and they were maybe like 40, 50, whatever, and we didn't go after them. Or, we were like, hey, this is the money. So if you want to get Bellingham next year, then you want to save it and not risk it. I don't know which one, which one of those scenarios he's referring to. But I think we are not able to take as many risks and, let's say, get 2-3 guys at 40 million a pop. And then if they don't pan out, then yeah, you just sell them like in a year or two later for like 45, 50. We're like, well, that didn't pan out. Because, whoever you get, you got to really nail it on the head and get that guy right, especially if it's a high dollar signing. I mean, we see what has happened. Really, I mean, you look at our track record, especially high dollar signings, we've hit the nail on the head every single one of them. And the only name that you can probably point out would be Keita. And look at the headaches it has created for us, because it has created headaches in midfield where we got him for. It's almost like we spend money and get expensive guys in like key spots. And, we've done, we built the spine that way of the team with Alisson, Van Dijk, and Fabinho. And, they've all been perfect signings and panned out. And then you get a guy like Keita to kind of like solve your issues at midfield, and really has not. So you got to get those high dollar signings dead on. So you can't take as much risk. And I know that's the risk that Klopp is like talking about. Like there are some guys, he's not as good as the other one. He's not top of my list, but he's fifth on my list. And I think he'll be good. Are you sure? Well, I don't know. I think he'll be good. And then, maybe the think is not good enough. We need like FSG needs like a guarantee that the guy is going to pay out or meet certain criteria. But either way, I feel like this is the first offseason in a while where I feel like they were just not on the same page. So it's kind of, so that's why I think the blame should go both ways, because it's definitely not the best communication. Because if Klopp had the attitude he had now 3-4 weeks ago, I think then he forces FSG one way or the other to kind of invest in that player or do whatever and get another midfielder in. But if you say we don't need a midfielder 4 weeks ago, and then when the injuries come, you're like, well, we always need the midfield. No, well, that's not what you said. And he admitted he was wrong. But that's why I think partially everybody, we talked about this, I think it was like last week or maybe Monday, with like, the FSG people automatically are going to blame FSG for it, fair or not. Usually unfair, because I think Klopp should get some of the blame on this one as well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this whole Artur deal, and if you feel like we will have another name coming in today. I mean, today will be one of those crazy days where there'll be rumors, little twists and turns, like people going to the different team in the last minutes and stuff like that. So it's a crazy day. Let's see what happens and who adds what. There's been a lot of names kind of floating over the last week, like we talked about them in the mornings, and I honestly, like, some of them I did not even want to touch up on, because I felt, they were just rumors and nothing like too much significance to them. And you can kind of see it because the same guy is rumored. This is where, you have to go with like a reliable journalist to consider the rumor plausible. Otherwise, it's a lot of managers trying to kind of like, working for their clients. They're like, what are you doing for me? I'm putting rumors out, kids. Hopefully we'll get something kind of a deal. So, couple of headlines this morning. We've been talking about this for a while. And obviously, after yesterday's results, I mean, Villa looks even in further trouble. And so Gerrard Tuchel or Rodgers to be next manager. Sat. If Maka was here, he would pick Rodgers. I think, obviously, we felt after what Moyes did last season, we felt and we kind of knew he had a lot of leeway and it would not be like an issue for him. But it's going to be tough for Gerrard the way it's going. And I know when we looked at the schedule earlier, it did not look very plausible. So it makes today's game very important, actually. And I mean, I'll be rooting for Leicester because they're playing United. So there's a vested interest there. But that's kind of like an important game there at home to see what they can do and if they can get any points out of that against United, who is still trying to unload or hoping he finds somebody that will take him for Ronaldo. And, Chris Scott says maybe Lampard if Saturday goes well. I was actually shocked not to see his name there. I know they're acting like, oh, he gets them and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what he's getting. Like, relegation battle. Is that what he gets? I don't know what he gets. But like, I don't think you have to really get them to understand how desperate they were last year to stay in the Premier League. There's no, there's no not getting there. Like, I don't get it. Why do they guys want to stay in the Premier League? There was no not getting that. So this whole he gets them thing is comical. But yeah, I'm amazed his name is not thrown in there as like the second ones. Alan Walnut says I want to kind of like talk about this. Liverpool fans hail Darwin Núñez for his foul mouth display from the dugout and dramatic win over Massel. He's film shotting well, I can say it. Fuck you. You don't have to do the expletives over here. It's not for kids. At the Magpies, as he set out the last game of his ban of that headbutt, FA investigated after Toon Coach launched the water bottle. Yeah, there was a lot going on there. You know who instigates a lot of the stuff, by the way? If you guys watch any of these sideline outbursts and fights, man, Pep is in the middle of every single one of them. And he is like the biggest instigator. And then I think he almost like holds the grudge throughout the game. So if we get the winning goal or if we finally have a breakthrough and score, he's always in the other face of the other team's sideline and stuff like that. So he's like the little instigator behind Klopp. Is go and watch anytime we've had something like this. Pep is in the middle of it, and he's one of like the main characters of it. But you knew that Villa would be frustrated, and because of the, I mean, not Villa, I'm sorry. Drawing a blank. Newcastle will be frustrated with the time added. And obviously they were probably yelling and screaming. I'm sure there was like a lot of like stuff going back and forth throughout the game too. Every time they lay down. I mean, at one point it was literally like a beach out there. Like people were just like sitting. And here's the thing: there is like that international language, like sign body language of I'm done sitting down, and then like with the arms in the bag, you're like, "Yep, I'm done." It's just like either you get cramps or whatever it is. Especially older players are like, "Time to sub. I'm done over here." But they kept doing that, and they kept getting up and playing. So it wasn't like Chris Scott says he gets fired up, and he does, and his intensity is his identity. I think so. That guy definitely takes that to heart. Gives that book more credibility. But yeah, he's like he causes a lot of that. I mean, I do kind of like that in some ways, show some fire in the team. Having said that, I don't know, it shows at the same time, I feel like we get over frustrated with it, and I hope we don't this weekend because there'll be a freaking lot of it on Saturday. I mean, Pickford literally starts with like the kickoff. Newcastle, it got worse once they got the lead. They did a couple of them where it was more strategic, like where we were getting on a roll and it was to slow down the momentum. So, okay. But with like Pickford, like he is delaying the game, like during the kickoff, like he already starts because at this point they're like a point is a point is their attitude, and that's how it was last year as well. And that's, I mean, I saw that Leeds game that was like ridiculous, and I think I talked about over here. It's also like not enough time being added, and then we have the same scenario in our game the same day because we are talking about it yesterday. I thought 3 minutes added to that Leeds game was like pathetic. I thought 5 minutes added to that game yesterday was pathetic as well. If you counted all the times they were laying around like it was the beach, but obviously the injury to Pope in right after the 90th minute, and I saw like a post earlier about like how long that lasted, and it was the same exact amount, a few seconds within us getting that corner kick. And in some ways, there was no way Mariner is not going to let us take that corner kick. And honestly, if they had that clear, game is over. Like while the ball is leaving the box, I think he's calling it. But the way it bounces around, obviously, he's not going to call it right there until that's action is complete. And that's when Carvalho gets his goal. And let's talk about Carvalho a little bit. I was extremely impressed with his post match. First of all, I think his maturity, the things he said, and I know, we were watching with my wife, and she's like, "Well, I'm sure they're like trained a lot on it," but all that training usually kind of goes out the door, out the window or door, whichever way, either opening. Where in the heat of the moment you just say stuff, right? Especially at that age, it's kind of like harder to probably, I mean, I can't imagine for that kid who just turned 20, be in that moment, just scoring his first goal, celebrating the birthday, and then scoring that winner in that, it wasn't just like a winning goal in like the 81st minute, then we hung on for dear life. It was almost like like a buzzer shots. It was like the very last thing that happened. So in that moment, for him to keep his composure and say stuff that was very, very mature and looking at the big picture and stuff like that, I thought was very impressive. Another thing I really liked is watching him and Elliot celebrate, like going around after the game yesterday. I think that's the thing that, we always criticize. I know this stuff is easier when you're winning, but we always, criticize about, Klopp being too tentative to bring new names in and like running out contracts and, hanging on to people. But that's like the environment that he likes to create. And it's kind of like, this is what you get. I mean, you have two kids there. Pretty much for the most part, I think, at least in my eye right now, they're, going after the same positioning on the field, and it will be more, in more ways than one, especially with Nunez coming back and Jota on the way back. A lot of times we were like, oh, can he, like play Bobby's position and stuff. Well, now you got Nunez coming back. Jota is, I think, starting practice. I want to say today, because I thought Klopp said like late this week. But either way, he's about to come back. So there's not going to be as many opportunities for Carvalho to play up top, unless we're talking like League Cup and, things like that. So for them to celebrate together and like, basically root for each other shows, like what the team that we've created and how these guys kind of work together. And that was definitely nice to see. I mean, it's always nice to see a 98th minute, winner. But as you watch the celebrations afterwards, like I say, I watched it after like yesterday evening because we did the post match right after the game. So I got a chance to afterward listen to the press conferences and see some after the game stuff and after the game interviews. I'm very impressed with that kid. I'm very impressed with his play. The part that I was more confused about and was like things that make you go it was like, so if Hendo doesn't get injured, I don't even know if we see Carvalho out there, or at least not then. We don't maybe see him till like 5 minutes later. 5 minutes till the final whistle. So that was definitely interesting, but at least we do have a midfielder. And yeah, I mean, it's this is exactly why, by the way, VJ was saying that, they used to call like when we had Joe Allen and they called him like a metronome because he used to move the ball left and right. That's something that Arthur does very well and a lot of. So I think while it might be frustrating to some fans, this is why I feel like it's more of a Henderson replacement than anything else. It's not a Thiago or Keita replacement. It's a Hendo replacement because of the injury yesterday. Meaning, if that was injured, that's not happening yesterday, I don't even think we do this loan deal. This is kind of like an emergency loan button, break glass if everybody's injured kind of a deal. So, but he will move that. I know it kind of like does not get seen as much, but one thing Hendo does, especially in home games, is be able to move that ball from one side to the other fast. Anybody can move the ball from one side to the other if you're taking like three passes, but Hendo's movement with that ball is a lot faster. I mean, that's mainly because Hendo, when the ball is coming, Hendo already knows what he's going to do with it. And honestly, if he does not do that, and if he gets caught on the ball, he's not as skilled on the ball. So I think over time, as he's improved his game, he's improved that. He's almost like a step ahead. So he's rarely caught on the ball. He always knows where he's going to go with it. And that fast movement, especially at home, helps a lot because that's what you need to do against defenses that sit as a low block. You got to move that ball fast so that the defense, as they're adjusting, it's not as easy to adjust to that spacing as the ball moves. So that's where you create the gaps in between and stuff like that. So, if you understand that part of the game, it's very valuable to move the ball sideways. That's why you move the ball sideways. I mean, it's not like, everybody gets frustrated if they have not played the game or if they have not. Here's the thing: if you have not been a defender like I was, as that ball is moving around, because that's not easy to freaking like shift your entire line as the ball moves, because you're moving with it, and you got to move as a unit. If you don't move as a unit, you're screwed. And as an attacking team, it's important to kind of like always, as you're moving the ball, kind of keep looking up because somebody's going to drop it. I mean, that's why, when they praise teams with the low block and saying, oh, hey, like they're keeping the shape and stuff, and they're like, oh, yeah, they're just standing there. They're not just standing there. That's not easy to do. And this is why Klopp was actually talking about this yesterday. That's not an easy thing to do, especially as they press and attack the ball and, use energy there. And he was talking about the game was very intense, and you could tell that Newcastle towards the end, like the 60th, 65th minutes, they started to wear down. And that's when you had more of those spaces. Even in that first goal, you see that counter starting really fast. going from like Ellison to Fabinho to Elliott to Mo, and then who kind of like crosses the Bobby. You can see in that movement when the ball is moving real fast, they cannot recover fast enough. And they're getting more and more tired. And you saw those openings more and more that Elliott was finding, Diaz was finding, like shots coming from outside the box because they can't close it enough. Like Fabinho had a couple of those shots where they could not react fast enough because it's tiring. And that's, we hope to wear teams down with our intensity. And that's why you want to move the ball fast. So he'll be definitely handy there. It'll be interesting to see if we get anything else from today. I'm sure we'll be watching that stuff all day. I kind of usually just have the thing open in the background that shows completed ones, and it'll just keep happening as we go. But tomorrow morning's chat should definitely be an interesting one because I would think there's going to be a lot to talk about. And I'll tell you guys what, I'm going to be very happy that at least we're not talking about rumors. It's going to be what's done is done. We're going to know exactly what we have, and we go again. And then we get ready for Saturday's game. Early game. I know it's kind of like a curse for us. Well, not only for us here in the US because we have to wake up, but we normally do not perform well. But you got to be able to get up for a Derby game. And I'm hoping the way we won yesterday was a lot better than the Bournemouth win in terms of getting the team back into the groove. And all we need is to string some, like wins. When you look at the schedule, we got to get to this. I think there's an international break. I want to say 22nd, maybe 20, something in the 20s of September. I want to say it's 22nd to 29th or something like that. We just got to get there with some decent results. Doesn't matter how we play. We got to be able to rotate to get the wins there. And I think by then we should get at least most people back so that we can kind of make a push onto the World Cup. And then you get a lot of players getting a lot of rest during that World Cup. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for joining the show today. Chris, Alan, and we'll talk tomorrow morning, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Keep refreshing that page to see if Liverpool got anybody else.